day of January 2011. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. And joining us on the broadcast is the host of the show, Decoded. He'll be popping in later in the next hour, reportedly, Brad Meltzer. And then our interview got cut off short because she got time zones messed up. Phyllis Schlafly will be joining us, the founder of the Eagle Forum, coming up in the last 30 minutes of the broadcast today to talk about the future of this country and are we really going to see change out of this Republican House of Representatives? And what's going to happen if they don't deliver on fully repealing Obamacare? Or what's going to happen if they go along with Obama, who Mr. Gibbs said yesterday at the White House briefing will be pushing gun grabbing, victim disarmament tonight in the State of the Union. So she'll be popping in with us in the last 30 minutes of the broadcast. We're going to have open phones throughout the transmission today on any subject or any item you wish to discuss, but I do want to open the phones up, at least in the first half of the broadcast, to first-time callers only, because I just talked to so many people who've tried to call in over the years who can never get involved. Any of the issues I'm about to cover, you are welcome to call in about. Now, we had a chilling phone call at the end of the broadcast yesterday from a man who had been in the military, in the Army, and then in the National Guard, assigned to the State Guard in the Northwest for martial law takeover drills and to set up checkpoints and run people's driver's license and license plate and then put them in the backs of Army trucks. Now, what was so chilling about the phone call is I have been to more than 15. I was trying to count it up in my mind last night. Instead of counting sheep going to bed at midnight, I was trying to count how many urban warfare drills I've been to where they're openly training to put Americans in FEMA camps. And now you know about the John Warner Defense Authorization Act, the 10 regional FEMA governors, Rex 84, the Emergency Centers Act, the Model States Emergency Powers Act. What was so chilling from hearing from him is that there's no way he could fake that and not be telling the truth. Because everything he was saying on air, I've separately confirmed myself and reverse engineered from the public record and from attending these events, some of which were unannounced. I just got tips from inside police departments and the military and was able to jump on airplanes or get in the car and drive to cover those. But just to hear it from a member of the military and how when they would ask questions about the role players saying, I'm an American, I'm your uncle, I'm your dad, I go to church with your wife, but they're still taken out of their car at the checkpoint and put in the Army truck, to hear that really brings it home how serious it is and how they were immediately kicking them out of the National Guard and the State Guard if they even ask questions. The same thing is done, obviously, with the TSA. And we've confirmed, we first got reports of it from callers, and then we confirmed and saw blurbs in the news that they called the TSA in and said, do you have a problem with the radiation from these scanners? Do you have a problem sticking your hands down people's pants? And if you have any problem, they tell you, thank you very much. And about a week later, you get your pink slip, you're laid off. This is how they're doing it. This is how they're building an army of police, military, and TSA government, not even police officers, not even sworn officers, goon squads who know nothing about the Bill of Rights and Constitution. They're just creating a new brown shirt brigade that really believes they're protecting us from terrorism and now rolling them out on the streets. And we also have it in the clergy response teams and the InfraGard reports that have come out and the documents we've received that they are preparing for a total takeover and a hot form, not a cold form of creeping tyranny and slow martial law, but building up towards a hot martial law, a mass roundup with the red list, the blue list, and the rest of it. Now, we've got to get the word out about this, speak out against it, and say no to it, because it's so brazenly tyrannical, so illegal, so unconstitutional, so treasonous, that if we stand up and aren't intimidated by this and speak out against it, they won't get away with it. But they're beta testing it right now. We'll be right back with big news on the TSA in Ventura. We are locked and loaded, ready to go in the info war. Thank you for joining us on this live Tuesday edition, the 25th day of January 2011. We're going to have open phones for first-time callers, at least in the first hour and a half, ahead of several informative guests that we have joining us. The toll-free number to get involved on air is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Okay, Obviously, I'm going to talk some about the State of the Union coming up tonight with Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama. The White House press secretary confirmed what we reported on a week ago, that there are rumors, and he's now confirmed those, that Obama will throw down the gauntlet. Of course, he's such a liar, and his handlers are such liars, we don't know if that's actually going to happen. But we've confirmed that they are saying, Gibbs said in the press conference yesterday, White House press conference, that they will be bringing out gun-grabbing, victim disarmament tonight. A lot of other big facets coming up, a real constitutional split with the Supreme Court justices, at least two of them reporting that they're not going to be attending tonight because Obama singled them out and excoriated them, which is just an amazing thing to do via the separation of powers, completely unconstitutional in the spirit of what he did at the last State of the Union. We're going to be going over that important stack, and I'd love to hear from you on your views ahead of the State of the Union. We're also being told that the big push is going to be some new campaign slogans that are going to be rolled out. It's a Republican slogan used on the West Coast in Oregon and Washington, and that's confirmed, but he's stealing it. And the headline here in roll call is, Republican owns Obama's Win the Future. And that's another spin or variant of hope and change. Let the confidence men just drag you and string us along a little bit longer while the banks consolidate their global government, run through their 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives. So that is coming up. Huge unrest via what's more and more looking like NATO/CIA instituted operations, of course, from Tunisia to Egypt into Yemen. Serious riots exploding all over that area of the world. Many of these countries so-called allies of the Anglo-American establishment or the West. Another chilling article by Paul Joseph Watson up at prisonplanet.com. Carnegie Endowment, that's one of the top globalist tax-free foundations, openly pushing world government now for 100-plus years. Carnegie touts green credentials of Genghis Khan for slaughtering 40 million people. And I'll never forget the 1996 UN Biological Diversity Assessment, where it talked about we must reduce the world population by 80%. We show screenshots of that public assessment in my film Road to Tyranny, now out for 9 years. And they said, we need to bring back human sacrifice like the Aztecs had. We need to bring back wars to reduce population. We need to have ways of slaughtering people. And, of course, you saw that in the State Department Memorandum 200, put out by Kissinger in 73, declassified in 92, where he said we need to fund the third world through IMF and World Bank money and make sure they reduce their populations through forced sterilization and abortion, or they won't get any of the IMF World Bank loans. And we need to fund enemy nations on their borders to start wars and to create famine. So this is part of their disgusting, out-of-control policy, and this article is up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com, lauding Genghis Khan. I mean, these reports now come out almost every day as they openly explain what they're doing. It's not like the globalists have to get over some moral compulsion to not kill. They see it as moral. Of course, it came out that the Earth First Battalion back in the 1970s and 80s at the Pentagon, it got whitewashed to a great extent by the Men Who Stare at Goats movie with George Clooney and others. But in the Earth First Battalion, and you can pull these up, it's at any library, it was published by the U.S. Army, they say we are the pale horse death. We bring death worldwide. Bring in the world government. I mean, this is just amazing, amazing stuff. The first time I saw this was about 13 years ago. Tex Mars let me dig through his giant archives at his office, and I first saw a copy of the Earth First Battalion, not to be confused with the environmental radical group Earth First, but they did basically take their name from that, calling for this type of global carnage that they're bringing in to cleanse the earth of the parasite disease that is mankind. So remember who's in control of the government, a bunch of eugenicists hell-bent on mass extermination. But the first thing I want to get into today is an article that Aaron Dykes and I wrote together last night. And I actually just gave Aaron the research notes and the points I wanted to be made, and Aaron did the lion's share of putting out this excellent report that is up at prisonplanet.com and infowars.com. If you're watching or listening on the radio or at prisonplanet.tv right now, you can go over to drudgereport.com, and it is the very top link on the Drudge Report, the #1 alternative news site in the world. Ventura strikes back with lawsuit against TSA. The inside story from Alex Jones about the former governor's humiliating pat-down experiences that included touching, groping, gripping, and rubbing the genitals at the hands of the TSA. And, of course, he talked about this and broke the news here in November that he was not going to be flying anymore, and that basically his career in television, producing TV shows, was over because he is not going to ever fly again. And he did not fly down to Mexico for the winter. He drove his RV through the snowstorms in Minnesota in late December and traveled down there. And back at the time, I had him back on early December, and he confirmed to me, he told me in September that he didn't know what he was going to do, that his career was ending because he couldn't subject himself to this groping, this sexual assault, and that's what his lawsuit talks about, and he didn't know what to do. Then in November, privately, he told me that he was considering a lawsuit. Then in early December, to get the timeline straight, he told me off air, and so John Harmon heard it and the crew heard it, but no one else did, that he was initiating the lawsuit in early 2011, but obviously not to tell anybody about it until the lawsuit had been launched. And I said, well, hopefully we can get you on once this happens. And he said, well, you know, I don't do media when I'm in Mexico, but he said I might do your show, but let's wait and see. And then he said he can go into town and maybe get on a phone line and call in, because he lives an hour from pavement, an hour from any town. His little bungalow has solar power, and so he really can't do interviews from there. But I got a call from Tyrell Ventura last night saying, well, the lawsuit has dropped. And I said, I know, I'm on it right now writing an article. I was on the other line, actually, with Aaron going through the article that we published in the early morning hours today. And he said, well, he'll work on getting him on the show in the next few days or in the next week. But regardless, if I give Tyrell questions, well, I actually have Jesse's email down there, but he's got to go into town to get it, that Jesse will write a statement for the show, bare minimum. But we already have his statement. It's what's in the lawsuit, and it's what he said in November and December when he broke on this show that he was no longer going to be traveling because he couldn't subject himself to the sexual humiliation. And there's already precedent here now. A woman in Texas who sued over them pulling off her shirt and bra and baring her breast and then laughing, and she was quite attractive. And then the TSA men in front of witnesses came up and said, man, I wish I could have been part of that search, baby. Once she was in the gate area crying, they were so inhuman because they fire everybody that's human. They fire everybody that's got a soul. They fire anybody who understands that ripping colostomy bags off people or urology bags or they make people who can't walk. I've seen this. They order them to get up, and old men and women who look like they are 5 seconds from death, 2 minutes from midnight, can't get up, and then they make passengers pick them up. I mean, these are people that are incredibly fragile, that could break bones or pull muscles just getting from their wheelchair to a toilet. And they're always going to visit their family one more time. Or once I saw, in 2003, I was in a San Francisco airport, and they had private security on top of TSA at the gate searching people again, not just at the checkpoint. And I saw a group of World War II survivors of Pearl Harbor. And some of them had hats that, said the Arizona on them. And one of these guys looked like he was about to die. He had his eye, the flesh around his eyes, the eyelids were drooping down and all red and dripping. I mean, you've all seen that with somebody who looks like they're 90 years old and, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And they were all wearing their World War II garb. They were all wearing their hats of what unit they were in, Marines. It was a whole group of them. And it was these foreigners who could barely speak English in these weird Cobra Commander type bright blue outfits. and berets, jabbering and gibbering at them and making them get out of wheelchairs and asking them what is this, and their wives, who were generally a little bit younger and were able to stand, would say, this is his oxygen tank. And I literally stopped flying for leisure at that point. And I rarely flew places to visit family or to go on a vacation, but at that point, I've never flown since for leisure, only when I absolutely have to, because I was sitting there watching this, and every bone in my body wanted to go over and get that guy by the shoulders and say, get your hands off these old men. Can't you see they're on the edge of death here, fighting to go to one more reunion at Pearl Harbor? I was waiting at another gate to fly back to Austin, and there was the plane about to take off to Hawaii, and Ventura sees that. Ventura and I witnessed that at airports together. He gets very upset by it. I'll tell you about it all when we come back. We're coming straight on for the TSA and the DHS occupation of America. They can't arrest us or get us all. We are the people. We are America. We are the Constitution. We are the Bill of Rights, and we're standing up against the offshore banks, taking this country over and looting it, and the congressional prostitutes that they paid for to help bring this nation into tyranny. We don't have a choice fighting these terrorists. We are going to expose them, and we're not going to shut up. We're not going to lower the tone of our rhetoric. We are the people in the spirit of 1776, and we're taking our republic back. So again, top link on drudgereport.com, one of the top links at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Ventura strikes back with lawsuit against TSA. The inside story from Alex Jones about the former governor's humiliating pat-down experiences that included touching, gripping, and rubbing of the genitals at the hands of the TSA, and that's all in the lawsuit. They are violating his civil rights as a disabled American with a titanium hip. Every time he goes through, they pull him out and do lengthy searches. I've witnessed it. I'm going to go through that. And he gets even more upset watching them force people in wheelchairs to get up. And it is just a nightmare situation, especially in Atlanta, where I witnessed it go on for about 8 minutes. And he started speaking up against it. And the TSA was giggling and smirking and thought it was a lot of fun. And they all knew exactly who he was. And a bunch of people gathered around. And because he spoke out against it, they took their time humiliating him, letting him know that government owns him, that he has no private space. Former Governor Jesse Ventura has taken steps. He's actually filed a suit against the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security, naming their chiefs John Pistole and Big Sis Janet Napolitano in a lawsuit that will take on invasive airport pat-downs. And then we have a link there in the article to the lawsuit if you want to read it, to the federal lawsuit. Ventura first told Alex Jones of his intent to sue the TSA privately back in November while traveling for the making of True TV's Conspiracy Theory, expressing grave concern about what he viewed as his country's transformation into East Germany. As far back as September, Ventura confided in Jones that his career was under threat and that he was considering abandoning travel altogether because of the fact that he was being harassed by TSA agents every single time he went through an airport security checkpoint. And I witnessed him, on the phone telling the execs at True TV, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I can't travel. I can't go anywhere. I'm never flying again. And, of course, he then announced that here on the air. Continuing, Jones recalls Ventura's outrage at the TSA's harassing old people in wheelchairs with the invasive new pat-down procedures. The former governor himself is routinely sent to secondary screening, every time he is, due to a hip replacement in 2008. And Jones witnessed him undergo repeated humiliating searches during pat-downs at the hands of the TSA. Worse, at airports across the country, even those presenting medical cards, which TSA is supposed to accept, describing special needs or equipment from a doctor are routinely ignored as TSA agents demand that medical patients remove ureterostomy bags, prosthetic breast, or the TSA be allowed to grope a pacemaker patient's breast. And we have links to all the mainstream articles about that. That's why I want to leave the United States, Ventura told Jones at the time. That's what he said to the TSA right in front of me. I was sitting there in the chair waiting for him to go through the rape down, the pat down, the grope down. This is why I go down to Mexico. This is wrong, he was saying to the TSA. In fact, I think I'm going to have Aaron's asleep now as he stayed up all night doing this. We need to have Watson add that he was telling TSA this. He wasn't even really telling me this. He was standing there with them all over him as it went on and on. I was sitting there In fact, I was sitting there taking photos of it with my iPhone. We went through the checkpoint, went and got food, and I said, look at these photos. And he goes, I'm glad you took them in case something happened, but nothing happened, so erase them. And I said, okay, and I erased them. But I had the photos on this iPhone, a whole bunch of them. This went on for like 8 minutes, probably longer. By the time I started timing it, it was 8 minutes. I was just sitting there while they were, hands between his legs all over him. Would have been good evidence, but Ventura was embarrassed by it and wanted it erased. Would have helped with the suit, but I told him about it, so he said get rid of them. But the point is that this went on and on and on. So telling the TSA, that's why I want to leave the United States, Ventura told Jones at the time. This is why I go down to Mexico. This is wrong, he told the TSA. Ventura indicated that he was most concerned about the destruction of the Fourth Amendment and passing of the America he once knew. We're going to come back and finish up with this article that chronicles just part of what I witnessed. But the issue here is people are standing up. They're saying no. The TSA is losing lawsuits. I told you about it in the last segment. The woman who they pulled her shirt off and her bra off, and then they all went into like some type of sexual frenzy with her, saying, oh, baby, oh, baby. We have two articles up at Infowars.com and PrisonPundit.com. Not just the Ventura strikes back with lawsuit against TSA. We have another one with the headline dealing with the fact that his lawsuit is getting into the issue of the fact that this is sexual abuse. And so we need to get these articles out to everyone out there that we can. But continuing with this article here, during one TSA pat-down procedure on Ventura that Jones witnessed at Atlanta International Airport, Ventura loudly proclaimed his disgust the United States had turned into East Germany and that America he loved and served in the U.S. military was dead, while TSA agents conducting the pat-down merely smiled. They knew who Ventura was and that he was a public figure. Yeah, a crowd gathered around. But still subjected the former governor to an 8-minute-plus invasive search. And when they call you out and put you in the glass box, it's all about humiliation. It's like having the dunce hat put on you. And this is all peer pressure that's being engaged in here. But as I said, if you go up to Infowars.com, there's two articles by Paul Joseph Watson dealing with this, and two articles dealing with this from Aaron Dykes. The second article is Ventura lawsuit, TSA pat-downs classify as unlawful sexual abuse. And we need to get these out again to everyone so that people realize what's happening in the society and that all of this violates our constitutional rights in a big way.
It's not about justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.